No one should ever say that they don't have the chance to make an impact. I'm going to give you a couple of different weeks of or episodes of podcasts that are going to be about my leadership book, The Unshakable Leader. This first one is about Harriet Tubman. And in the book, I talk about how she was a person who just made this huge difference in slavery, freeing people, leadership, independence. And she did it quietly. She never had titles. She never really came from anything. We'll talk about that. But there's a quote of hers that I love that says, "I never let my train run off the track, and I never lost a passenger." And I thought that was awesome. It's a great quote. You know, she was born in slavery in her early years. And realistically, back then, and I'm sure slavery anywhere around the world is the same, but it was brutal. You know, you had to have a deep inner strength to be able to survive it, and especially survive it without resentment, hatred, all that. You know, and so she learned early on that she needed to have endurance, that she needed to have resilience, and she gained it from the hard labor that she did, and unfortunately, the hard punishment that she went through. Her beginnings were shaped, you know, from this unshakable belief. And her belief was about freedom. It was about her freedom and the freedom of those around her and anyone else that she could bring to freedom. It's really interesting that her first escape was really just about breaking the chains that were around her beliefs, her head, her heart, you know, where she had to escape the idea that she couldn't do anything and turn to the concept that she could make a difference, she could have impact. And that's what we can all do as leaders. That's what we all need to do as leaders. We need to focus on impact. We need to focus on how do we get the best out of our people by freeing them from the beliefs that they have, that they aren't good enough, that they aren't free, that they aren't able to be as amazing as they were born to be. You know, and Harriet Tubman didn't just run. She planned, she relied on instinct, she had allies, you know, so she had a team of people that she relied on to help her bring other people to freedom. And what was really neat is that her first taste of freedom really became her fuel. It became this fuel for her to be able to say, I can become free and I can help others to be free as well. You know, and for us, if you're a leader in any part of your life, any part of the, you know, your professional or personal world, the question is, how do you seek freedom? How do you help your family to be free of financial hardship? You know, how do you help your family to be free of anger and resentment and bitterness? How do you help your people at work to be able to say that they love coming to work? That they can be free of the idea that, you know, work is this burden, you know. And please, I'm not ever saying that slavery is anywhere akin to work. It's not. Slavery is awful, horrible stuff. But what's interesting is that Harriet Tubman took this hardest part of her life and she allowed it to define her in a positive way, not a negative way. She created this underground, or she created a part of and was a part of the Underground Railroad. It was a network of freedom, which is just so great. What can we do as leaders, right, to build trust, all right, like she did with safe house owners? You know, they often had to travel at nighttime. They often had to use special signals. You know, it's funny that they use scripture as navigation tools. I mean, they figured out how to be successful, how to free more and more people. And I'm sorry, but if she could do that amidst all of that oppression, we can do so much. You know, so if we can use her as a model, all right, because she wasn't just escaping, she was leading. And I'm sorry, but we can all be much better, more unshakable leaders like her. And what I think was great is that she had a mission, and her mission was to overcome fear. And I think that it was 19 times that she came back after she was free to free others. And her purpose trumped her fear. Her purpose was about making sure to help other people to have what she had, this idea of freedom. As leaders, how can we help other people to be happy, to be confident, to be empowered to become their best selves? We have this ability as leaders, this positional power to do that. And Harriet Tubman carried a pistol, but it was interesting. It wasn't to fight. It was to make sure that no one turned back. It was to make sure that she could help people to say, you can move forward. Let's all move forward. Let's all find our freedom. And that's something that she was willing to die for. I mean, how many things are we really willing to die for? It's funny that she had a nickname of Moses, which, I'm sure makes sense. She brought people to freedom, to the Holy Land. And she became a symbol, a symbol of deliverance, a symbol of hope. And it just always brings me back to, the reason why I put her in this book was because we need to be that for our staff, for our family, for the people around us. We need to show them hope. We need to deliver them from the idea that work is awful, and that fighting at home is normal. We need to help people to see that there is so much more out there, right, than what we might have been taught, than what we believe. And I think that what's important is that a leader helps people to see that they can go places that they didn't think that they could go on their own. A leader will take people to a better place. And that's what Harriet Tubman did. She was constantly under pressure, just like many leaders are. But her pressure, so much more than any of us deal with. She had to deal with life or death choices almost on a daily basis when she was helping people to move through the system. And she learned that she had to make decisions and make them fairly quickly. Because hesitation for someone like her could mean that people died. And so what I think is interesting, as we go through our lives and we think our days are so hard, our work is so hard, our people, they just aren't listening to us. And we're going through poor me situations. What is such a big deal is that we need to remember people like Harriet Tubman and how she was able to lead without ever having any leadership coaching, without ever going to school for this. She just decided to help people. She was a true servant leader. And it's interesting, she built trust in a situation that was very untrusting and a very dangerous situation. And one of the ways that she was able to build trust was that she was so consistent, which is so big for all of us as leaders. Consistency builds trust. We need to remember that if we want people to trust us, we have to help them to see a little bit of the future. All right, we show them a little bit of the future, and then help to create that future with them. She showed them, I'm sure through her words, that they could be free. And then she helped them to be free. And it's such a big deal that we all care about our people. I mean, she went back 19 times, and every single one of those times, she could have been killed. Every single one of those times, she could have been caught and then brought back into slavery. How terrifying would that be? We don't do with any of that stuff. We don't have to deal with any issues like that. But what's interesting is that we can try to teach resilience and care and service and then help our people to a better place. It is interesting that, she had things like a head injury. She had pain, from the head injury, but she saw her suffering as part of her mission. Her pain didn't break her. It just became part of her purpose. And I think that what is such a big deal is that we all as leaders, as people, as leaders, we have to make sure that we are strategic. All right. We have to have a strategy of where we want to go in our lives. What is the vision that we want to have for ourselves, for our families, for our staff? And so when Harriet Tubman had to use things like the stars, river currents, and coded songs, I mean, it's unbelievable to navigate. We can do simple things like create a vision for our staff, for our companies, for our departments to help them see the direction we're going. All right. We don't have it near as hard as what she did, but most of us don't do that. Most of us aren't clear in our vision of what the future can be for our people. The key is we need to be courageous. All right. The key is that we need to teach our people to be courageous. Right? It comes from us first, and then we teach it for our people. And I think that it is interesting that we need to make sure that throughout all of our day-to-day issues that we deal with, that we are a change agent. Right? Harriet Tubman was a change agent. She wasn't just content in saving people. She wanted to change the system. She wanted to make the system better. She advocated for women's rights, for veterans' benefits, for all these things. She was a person who was a transformational leader, really before the whole term existed, because she transformed people's lives. I mean, it's such a big deal. So if we remember, mission over ego, right? Things like purpose over comfort. And if we can lead our people to freedom in our lives, if we can remember the amazing things that this woman did when she had no training, minimal help, and she just wanted to make a difference in the world. That's our job, right? Our job is to make a difference in the world, to help make the lives of our staff, our family, better. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to use the story of Harriet Tubman to remember to stop thinking, poor me? Oh, and you have it so hard. We do not have it hard. All right. Our life is easy. And if we can help other people to find mission and purpose, that will be great leadership. All right. If you ever need help, I'd be happy to help you. I do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, have a great leadership program called Learn, Grow, Lead. Just contact us through the information you'll see on the screen, and I'll be happy to help. Take care.